Chosen one. Someone ruined their own life and then tried to use yours as an ego boost. Read that again. Because the moment you truly understand what that means, years of confusion suddenly begin to make sense. They weren't watching you because you were failing. They weren't talking about you because you were irrelevant. They weren't comparing themselves to you because they had moved on. No, they were doing something far more revealing. They were using your life as a mirror to escape looking at their own. And what happened next was something they never imagined. Because the very person they expected to stay broken became the living reminder of everything they refused to become. Chosen one, this message is not random. There's a reason these words found you today. There's a reason your spirit feels pulled toward this conversation. Because somewhere along your journey, you encountered someone who secretly built their confidence on the assumption that you would never rise. They believed your struggles would continue. They believed your pain would define you. They believed your setbacks were permanent. They believed your story had already been written. But they only saw the storm. They never saw the roots growing underneath. And that's where they made the mistake that changed everything. You see, some people do not feel powerful because they are succeeding. They feel powerful because they think someone else is failing. There's a difference, a massive difference. One builds confidence from growth. The other builds confidence from comparison. One creates, the other watches. One heals, the other judges. One climbs, the other keeps looking down the mountain, hoping someone remains beneath them. Here's what they never understood. The moment your value depends on another person's weakness, your confidence becomes a house built on sand. And eventually, reality always arrives like a rising tide. It washes everything away. Chosen one. If this message speaks to your journey, leave your thoughts in the comments, because what we're about to uncover goes deeper than most people realize. This is not merely about jealousy. This is not merely about comparison. This is about a hidden psychological pattern that destroys lives from the inside out. And the person who thought they were winning never saw the collapse coming. Number one, they mistook your season for your identity. Chosen one of the most dangerous assumptions people make is believing that a temporary chapter is an entire story. They saw you during a difficult season. Maybe you were struggling financially. Maybe you were rebuilding after heartbreak. Maybe you were fighting battles nobody knew existed. Maybe you were carrying wounds that made every day feel heavier than the last. And they looked at that moment and decided that was who you were, not where you were. Who you were, that's the mistake. Because seasons change. Winter never asks permission before becoming spring. Night never remains forever. Storms do not own the sky. Yet some people become so attached to the image of you struggling that they cannot imagine anything different. Think about this. When a farmer plants a seed, an uninformed observer sees dirt. Nothing more. No evidence of growth. No evidence of life. No evidence of potential. Just dirt. But beneath the surface, invisible miracles are taking place. Roots are forming. Strength is developing. Life is preparing itself. The observer calls it empty. The farmer calls it preparation. Chosen one, they looked at your soil and assumed there was no seed. They looked at your silence and assumed there was no strength. They looked at your setbacks and assumed there was no future. They underestimated what was happening underground. Imagine someone standing over a buried seed every day, laughing, mocking, shaking their head, declaring that nothing will ever grow. Then one morning they wake up and discover a tree where they expected emptiness. That is what happened with you. While they were measuring appearances, you were developing roots. While they were making judgments, you were building resilience. While they were creating narratives, you were creating strength. And strength developed in darkness is often the strongest kind, because nobody applauds it, nobody notices it, nobody rewards it, yet it continues growing. Quietly, patiently, powerfully. They laughed. You healed. They judged. You grew. They mocked. You transformed. And slowly, without realizing it, they became trapped inside an outdated version of you that no longer existed. But that was only the beginning. Because the deeper reason they watched you had nothing to do with you at all, and everything to do with themselves. Number two, they built their confidence on comparison. Chosen one, here's what they never understood. Confidence borrowed from comparison is not confidence. It is dependency disguised as superiority. Some people walk through life constantly searching for someone they believe is behind them, not because they want to help, not because they care, because they need proof that they are ahead. And for a while, they thought you were that proof. You became their measuring stick, their reference point, their emotional crutch. Every time they felt insecure, they looked toward your struggles. Every time they doubted themselves, they compared their situation to yours. Every time life disappointed them, they comforted themselves with one thought: at least I'm doing better than them. Let that sink in. Imagine building an entire skyscraper on borrowed foundations. It may look impressive from a distance. People may admire it. People may even envy it. But beneath the surface, the structure is unstable. One shift, one crack, one unexpected movement, and everything begins to shake. That is exactly what happened. Because while they were using your pain to feel stronger, you were quietly becoming stronger. While they were studying your weaknesses, you were developing wisdom. While they were celebrating your setbacks, you were learning lessons. And lessons eventually become power. The kind of power no one can take away. The kind of power that survives storms. The kind of power that does not depend on anyone else's failure. Then came the moment they never imagined. You started changing. Not loudly, not dramatically, not for attention, but undeniably. And suddenly their emotional foundation began to crack. Because if you were no longer struggling, who were they without comparison? That's when reality hit. And the impact was far greater than anyone realized. Number 3, your growth forced them to face themselves. Chosen one, this is where the story becomes uncomfortable. Not for you, for them. Because there comes a moment when a person can no longer hide behind comparison. There comes a moment when a mirror they avoided begins reflecting something they desperately do not want to see. And your growth became that mirror. Here's what they never understood. Your success was never the thing that bothered them. Your healing was. Because success can be explained away. People can call it luck. People can call it timing. People can call it coincidence. But healing? Healing exposes something much deeper. Healing reveals responsibility. Healing reveals possibility. Healing reveals that transformation was available all along. And that realization can be terrifying for someone who spent years making excuses. Imagine a man standing outside a mountain for 10 years. Every day he explains why climbing is impossible. Every day he lists obstacles. Every day he blames the weather. Every day he points at the rocks. Then one day, he watches someone else begin to climb. Not someone stronger. Not someone luckier. Not someone born with advantages. Just someone willing to take one step, then another, then another. Suddenly the mountain he called impossible becomes evidence of his own avoidance. Do you see it? The mountain did not change. The truth became visible. Chosen one, they watched you keep going when every reason existed to quit. They watched you stand back up after disappointments that would have broken many people. They watched you rebuild confidence after betrayal. They watched you recover after being overlooked. They watched you survive seasons that seemed designed to destroy your spirit. And every step you took became another question they could no longer avoid. If they can do it, why haven't I? That question haunted them, because deep down they knew the answer. You faced what they ran from. You confronted what they ignored. You healed what they buried. You transformed what they denied. And that's when something strange happened. The person who once looked down on you started feeling threatened by you. Not because you attacked them. Not because you competed with them. Not because you sought revenge. But because your existence exposed possibilities they refused to pursue. They couldn't understand why your presence suddenly felt uncomfortable. This is why. You became living proof that change is possible. And some people would rather protect their excuses than confront that truth. But what happened next revealed an even deeper layer of the story. Because when comparison stopped working, many of them turned to something else. Something far more desperate. Number 4. They secretly expected you to stay broken. Chosen one, there are people who become emotionally attached to your struggles. Not because they care. Because your struggles serve them. Your pain comforts them. Your confusion reassures them. Your setbacks make them feel safe. That sounds harsh. But now listen carefully. Some people never truly invest in becoming better. Instead, they invest in believing others will remain worse. That belief becomes their security blanket. As long as you remain stuck, they never have to question themselves. As long as you remain lost, they never have to grow. As long as you remain wounded, they never have to heal. But everything changes when you refuse to remain the same person. Imagine someone buying a map based on an old landscape. They spend years studying it, trusting it, depending on it. Then one day they discover the terrain has completely changed. Roads have moved. Mountains have shifted. Rivers have carved new paths. The map no longer works. That was their experience with you. They were operating from an outdated version of your life, an outdated version of your identity, an outdated version of your confidence, an outdated version of your future. Meanwhile, you had already evolved. The person they thought they knew no longer existed. The person they expected to fail had learned resilience. The person they expected to quit had developed discipline. The person they expected to remain wounded had discovered inner peace. The person they expected to remain small had grown beyond every limitation they imagined, and suddenly they found themselves staring at a reality that made no sense to them, because their assumptions had become chains. Chains wrapped around their perception, chains wrapped around their judgment, chains wrapped around their understanding. And while they were trapped by those chains, you were breaking yours. Think about that. They were prisoners of expectation. You became the architect of transformation. They watched. You evolved. They assumed. You adapted. They doubted. You developed. They remained the same. You became someone entirely new. And that is why their confidence began collapsing. Because confidence built upon another person's suffering cannot survive another person's healing. It never can. And the collapse became impossible to hide. Number 5. The humbling was never about punishment. Chosen one. Many people misunderstand what happened next. They imagine some dramatic moment, some public downfall, some instant reversal. But real humbling rarely looks like that. Real humbling happens quietly, internally, psychologically, spiritually. It happens when illusion collides with reality. Imagine someone staring into a distorted mirror for years. Every reflection tells them they are taller than everyone else, stronger than everyone else, smarter than everyone else, more important than everyone else. Then one day the mirror breaks. Suddenly they see themselves clearly for the first time. No distortion, no exaggeration, no illusion, just truth. That moment can feel devastating because truth removes every hiding place. Chosen one. The greatest humbling they experienced was realizing that the person they underestimated possessed something they never developed. Inner strength, not performance, not appearance, not status, not image. Inner strength, the kind forged in fire, the kind developed during lonely nights, the kind created when nobody is coming to rescue you, the kind built through disappointment, rejection, loss, uncertainty, and perseverance. They spent years polishing appearances. You spent years strengthening foundations. And when life storms arrived, the difference became impossible to ignore, because storms reveal what sunshine conceals. When everything is easy, everyone looks strong. When life becomes difficult, reality speaks. And reality revealed something they never expected. You were stronger than you looked. Much stronger. Far stronger than they ever imagined. And that realization humbled them in ways no argument ever could. Because truth doesn't need to shout. Truth simply stands there, undeniable, unmovable, unshakable. And the deeper lesson hidden inside all of this is something every chosen one eventually discovers. Something that changes everything forever. And once you understand it, you stop caring who doubted you in the first place. Because you finally see what the entire journey was preparing you for. Number 6. The battle was never really about them. Chosen one. This is the part most people never reach. This is the layer hidden beneath every betrayal, every judgment, every comparison, and every painful memory. Because eventually you begin to realize something that changes the entire story. The battle was never really about them. It was about who you were becoming. For a long time, it felt personal. Every criticism felt personal. Every rejection felt personal. Every moment of being overlooked felt personal. Every false assumption felt personal. You wondered why certain people seemed determined to misunderstand you. You wondered why some people appeared almost disappointed whenever something good happened in your life. You wondered why your victories were met with silence while your mistakes were discussed endlessly. But here's the truth. Most of the time, people are not reacting to who you are. They are reacting to what your existence awakens inside them. Let that sink in. A mirror does not create insecurity. It reveals it. A mountain does not create fear. It reveals it. A storm does not create weakness. It reveals it. And your journey became a mirror. Not because you were trying to be one, because authenticity naturally exposes illusion. Think about this. Imagine walking into a dark room carrying a lantern. You did not create the darkness. You did not create the dust. You did not create the hidden corners. But the moment light enters the room, everything becomes visible. The room was always that way. The light simply revealed it. Chosen one, your growth became a lantern. Your resilience became a lantern. Your healing became a lantern. Your persistence became a lantern. And some people celebrated that light. Others resented it. Because light does not ask permission before exposing what darkness was hiding. That's why they couldn't understand you. They mistook your peace for weakness. They mistook your patience for passivity. They mistook your silence for defeat. They mistook your kindness for inability. They mistook your humility for lack of confidence. But everything changed because eventually life revealed what your silence was actually doing. It was strengthening you. While they were reacting, you were reflecting. While they were criticizing, you were learning. While they were focused on appearances, you were building substance. And substance always outlasts appearance. Always. The tallest wave eventually crashes. But the ocean remains. And you were becoming the ocean. Deep, steady, unmoved by temporary winds. Yet the greatest transformation had not happened in your circumstances. It was happening inside you. And that transformation was about to make you completely untouchable. Number 7. You stopped needing their validation. Chosen one. There is a moment in every profound transformation when something invisible breaks. Not your spirit. Not your hope. Not your confidence. A chain. A chain you may not have even realized you were carrying. The chain of needing certain people to finally understand you. For years. Perhaps part of you wanted them to see the truth. You wanted them to recognize your heart. You wanted them to acknowledge your efforts. You wanted them to admit they misjudged you. You wanted them to finally see the strength they overlooked. But life has a strange way of teaching deeper lessons. Because sometimes closure does not arrive through their understanding. It arrives through your freedom. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack up a mountain. For years you believe it contains something valuable, something necessary, something you cannot leave behind. Then one day you open it and discover it is filled with stones. Nothing but weight, nothing but burden, nothing but unnecessary struggle. The moment you set it down, everything changes. The mountain does not become smaller. You become lighter. Chosen one. Many people spend years carrying the weight of other people's opinions, the weight of being misunderstood, the weight of proving themselves, the weight of defending themselves, the weight of explaining themselves. But eventually wisdom arrives, and wisdom whispers something powerful. You do not need permission to become who you were meant to be. Think about that. You do not need their approval. You do not need their applause. You do not need their recognition. You do not need their agreement. You do not need their validation. Because the moment your worth depends on another person's opinion, your peace becomes their hostage. And you were never meant to live that way. So something beautiful happened. You stopped chasing understanding. You stopped chasing acceptance. You stopped chasing acknowledgement. And ironically, that is when your power became undeniable. Because people can manipulate your reactions. People can manipulate your emotions. People can manipulate your insecurities. But they cannot manipulate someone who knows who they are. That person becomes dangerous to every illusion. Not dangerous through aggression. Dangerous through certainty. Quiet certainty. The kind that does not need to announce itself. The kind that does not need to prove itself. The kind that simply exists, like a mountain, like the sunrise, like the ocean. And once you reach that place, the entire dynamic changed forever, because now they were no longer affecting your journey. You were simply continuing it. And what happened next became the most unexpected part of all. Number 8. The life they used to judge became the life they secretly admired. Chosen one. This is one of life's greatest ironies. The very qualities people often mock at the beginning become the qualities they admire at the end. The discipline they laughed at, the consistency they ignored, the patience they misunderstood, the resilience they underestimated, the integrity they dismissed. Over time, those same qualities become impossible to ignore. Imagine watching a sculptor chip away at a massive block of stone. Day after day, month after month, year after year, the work looks repetitive, slow, unimpressive. Most people walk past without noticing. Some even laugh. Some question the effort. Some assume nothing remarkable is happening. But then one day the sculpture is revealed. Suddenly everyone sees what was being created all along. Chosen one, your transformation was like that sculpture. The masterpiece was never built in one moment. It was built through thousands of invisible moments. Moments nobody applauded. Moments nobody celebrated. Moments nobody noticed. Moments when you kept going despite exhaustion. Moments when you chose growth over bitterness. Moments when you chose healing over revenge. Moments when you chose purpose over despair. Those moments became your masterpiece. And eventually even the people who doubted you could see it. Not always openly. Not always honestly. But they saw it. They watched. They noticed. They compared. And for the first time, the comparison no longer worked in their favor. Because the person they once viewed as beneath them had become someone they could not ignore. That's when reality hit harder than ever before. Because they finally understood something that had been true all along. Your story was never over. It was just beginning. And the final lesson hidden within this journey is perhaps the most powerful one of all. The lesson that turns pain into purpose. The lesson that transforms wounds into wisdom. The lesson that every chosen one eventually discovers after surviving what was meant to break them. And once you see it, you will never view your past the same way again. Your success was never their defeat. Chosen one, this is where true freedom begins. Because there is a dangerous lie that traps countless people for years. The lie says that if someone hurt you, doubted you, mocked you, or used you as an ego boost, then your victory must somehow become their defeat. But here's what they never understood, and perhaps what you are only now beginning to understand. Your success was never about proving them wrong. It was about discovering who you truly are. Think about a river. A river does not flow because it wants to defeat the rocks in its path. It flows because flowing is its nature. The rocks are simply part of the journey. The river does not stop to argue. It does not stop to explain itself. It does not waste energy demanding recognition. It simply keeps moving, patiently, powerfully, relentlessly, and eventually it carves through mountains. Chosen one, there was a season when you thought the pain was the story. You thought the rejection was the story. You thought the betrayal was the story. You thought the misunderstanding was the story. But none of those things were the story. They were chapters, important chapters, painful chapters, necessary chapters, but not the story. The story was always your transformation. The story was always your resilience. The story was always your growth. The story was always your ability to keep moving when life gave you every reason to stop. Imagine a blacksmith standing before a blazing fire. The metal enters the flames weak, unformed, ordinary. Then the heat begins. The hammer falls. Again, and again, and again. To an outside observer, it may look like destruction, but the blacksmith sees something different. Creation. The metal is not being ruined. It is being shaped. Chosen one, there were moments when life felt like that fire. Moments when every disappointment felt like another strike of the hammer. Moments when every setback felt unbearable. Moments when every loss left you questioning everything. But what if those moments were shaping you rather than destroying you? What if the pressure was preparation? What if the struggle was refinement? What if the darkness was creating the strength necessary for the light ahead? Now listen carefully. The people who built their confidence on your struggles never saw this process. They only saw the flames. They never saw the transformation happening within them. And because they never understood transformation, they misjudged yours. But eventually the fire revealed the truth. You emerged stronger, wiser, calmer, more focused, more grounded, more authentic. And authenticity is something no one can fake forever. That's why your presence began affecting people differently. Because real strength carries a different energy. Not loud, not arrogant, not desperate, just undeniable. And that brings us to the deepest truth of all. The truth that changes everything once you truly embrace it. Number 10. The humbling they experienced was actually an invitation. Chosen one. Most people think being humbled is punishment, but often it is an invitation. An invitation to wake up. An invitation to grow. An invitation to become honest. An invitation to finally face reality. Some people accept that invitation. Others spend their lives running from it. Think about this. When dawn arrives, darkness does not lose a battle. Darkness simply cannot remain where light has entered. The light doesn't attack it. The light doesn't argue with it. The light simply exists. And existence becomes revelation. That is what happened when your life began changing. Your growth revealed truths. Your healing revealed truths. Your resilience revealed truths. Not only about them, about everyone around you. Some people were inspired. Some people became uncomfortable. Some people quietly admired you. Some people secretly envied you. Some people questioned themselves. Some people avoided looking too closely. But nobody remained unaffected. Because transformation has a way of awakening something in everyone who witnesses it. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean at sunrise. The sky begins changing color. Gold spreads across the horizon. The water reflects light in every direction. The entire landscape transforms before your eyes. One person sees beauty. Another sees possibility. Another sees mystery. Another sees fear. The ocean is the same. The observers are different. Chosen one, your growth became that sunrise. People projected their own fears, hopes, insecurities, dreams, and limitations onto your journey. But none of those projections defined you. They only revealed them. And perhaps the greatest irony of all is this. The people who once used your life to feel better about themselves were actually receiving an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to change, an opportunity to heal, an opportunity to become better. Whether they accepted that opportunity was never your responsibility. That was their choice. Your responsibility was different. Your responsibility was to continue becoming. And that's exactly what you did. You kept walking. You kept growing. You kept healing. You kept building. You kept believing. Even when nobody understood. Even when nobody noticed. Even when nobody supported you. You kept moving forward. And that decision changed everything. Number 11. One day you realized you were never behind. Chosen one, this realization arrives quietly. Not with noise. Not with applause. Not with some dramatic announcement. It arrives in silence. A profound silence. The kind that settles into your soul after years of searching. For so long, you may have believed you were behind. Behind your peers. Behind your goals. Behind your dreams. Behind where you thought you should be. And perhaps that belief haunted you. Perhaps it made you question yourself. Perhaps it made you compare your journey to people who seemed further ahead. But one day something shifted. You look back, not with regret, not with bitterness, not with shame, but with understanding. And suddenly you saw something you had never seen before. You were never behind. You were becoming. There's a difference. A mountain does not apologize for taking centuries to form. A diamond does not apologize for the pressure required to create it. A giant oak tree does not apologize for how long its roots take to grow. The things built to last often take longer. Let that sink in. The people who judge your timeline only understood speed. They did not understand depth. They understood appearances. They did not understand foundations. They understood results. They did not understand preparation. And preparation was exactly what your life was creating. Every setback, every disappointment, every lonely season, every unanswered question, every difficult lesson, Each one was adding another layer to your strength. Not visible strength, real strength. The kind nobody notices until life becomes difficult. And when life eventually tested everyone, the difference became clear. Because some people had built their confidence on comparison. You built yours on character. Some people built their identity on appearances. You built yours on truth. Some people built their self-worth on being ahead of others. You built yours on becoming a better version of yourself. And character always outlasts comparison. Truth always outlasts illusion. Purpose always outlasts ego. That is why you are still standing. And what comes next may be the most important realization of your entire journey. Chosen one, after everything you've been through, there is one truth that remains. The people who use your life as an ego boost thought they were watching your ending. They never realized they were witnessing your beginning. They thought your struggles were your identity. They thought your wounds were permanent. They thought your silence meant weakness. They thought your setbacks defined your future. But they were wrong, because while they were focused on where you were, life was preparing you for where you were going. They laughed. You healed. They judged. You grew. They mocked. You transformed. They watched. You evolved. And in the end, the greatest victory was never proving them wrong. The greatest victory was becoming someone who no longer needed to. Chosen one. Every storm you survived gave you strength. Every disappointment gave you wisdom. Every setback gave you resilience. Every wound taught you compassion. Nothing was wasted. Not the pain, not the tears, not the waiting, not the lonely nights. It all became part of the person you are today. Now look at how far you've come. You are not who you were when this journey began. You carry a deeper confidence, a quieter strength, a stronger spirit, a clearer purpose. And the people who underestimated you were forced to confront a truth they never expected. You were never falling behind. You were growing beneath the surface, like a seed becoming a tree, like a diamond formed under pressure, like a sunrise after the longest night. So keep moving forward, chosen one. Keep building, keep healing, keep becoming. Because your story was never meant to be a warning about failure. It was meant to be proof of transformation. And remember this. The same life they used to feel superior became the life that taught them humility.